Oh, no music behind it today. And it was a short one, too. It was like 3 seconds. What is up, everybody? Welcome into the DNVR Nuggets podcast presented by DraftKings. Wow, the energy is so weird with that music. It's really rough. Fortunately, people on podcasts are going to be hearing the music. Fellas, officially the offseason. I know we had that one show last week that was kind of offseason. Officially the offseason here. And I got to say, I'm ready for it. I'm actually very excited for it. Let me introduce the panel first. I've got Eric, who's you screwed yourself, Eric. I can no longer look at you without noticing the gap between your mustache. You have to grow it out immediately because I can't stop noticing it.
Well, I can't grow it out immediately. That's like old growth forest. It took quite a bit of time to grow in, and then with one fell swoop, I cut down all of that. It's sad. Listen, but again, you can imagine what I would look like with just a mustache, which is kind of delightful, right? Like I look like a California highway patrolman.
You would look way older if you had that. You definitely would take on a fully different look if you had that mustache. A guy who would also look a lot older with any facial hair whatsoever is Brendan Vogt.
Oh man, I haven't gone through puberty yet. I'm still waiting. Waiting. D-Line, I was gonna advocate for you to go only mustache. Have you ever been a mustache guy?
No, the problem is that the bottom of my face is like filled out in a way that it would be not flattering.
I see.
And then up here at the top right corner, frozen once but not frozen again, it's Harrison Wind.
The only thing that might be worse than the Wi-Fi at my new house is the Wi-Fi at this office, right?
You hate to see it. Man, we're a full off season.
I think we're
already.
good, though. I think we're good.
Well,
bro, if anybody can hear, like I'm hoping this happens throughout the show, there is a gym directly underneath my feet.
Oh, hell yeah.
And they are either like doing primally based lifting or there's some sort of like tantric. So there's a lot of screaming happening, so I'm hoping people at home can hear him. Yeah.
My head is too big for a hat. The comment section's already off to a great start, a roaring start. I'm going to lean backwards so that it doesn't. You can see the regular size of my head, very regular.
Find a new slant.
Find a new slant. It's a regular head. Guys, we're going to kick off a brand new end of season. I mean, we do this pretty much every year, but an end of season review of the players and kind of talk about what things stood out. And I had a blast doing this. I got to say. I went up to the mountains, went up to Breckenridge for 2 days, with the family, got a little unplugged a little bit, got up there. I can't believe it turns out it's all I needed. 2 days. Now I'm back and excited to talk basketball. What? I'm all rejuvenated. I know it was crazy.
You ready to play 82 games again?
Hey, next year, can you do that? Can you do that during the season at some point?
I should probably do that during the season. Have you ever seen I saw this. There's this one guy you would recognize him. He's like a Marine who now gives like life advice. I can't even remember what his name is. Kind of a
David Goggins.
Yeah.
No, I love David
Brandon
Goggins. That guy's crazy. There's another one though, and he that's like him, but he talks about how it's good to take like 6-minute naps or something, and I'm like, what? Anyway, that's how I felt with this weekend. A little 2-day vacation, and I'm fully recharged. It's unbelievable.
6-minute naps. Dude, I can't wait until these like life hack fads just reach full logical. You shouldn't breathe. Hold your breath 24 hours.
Water is actually worse for you than you imagine.
Right. Drink gasoline.
Something about like if you elevate your feet, you only need like 6 to 8 minutes, and it feels like 8 hours or something. I don't know. I never will try it, but I'll
I bet that's true. That sounds true.
It checks out. But I want to get into some of this Jokic stuff. So I want to dive right in because I have a feeling we might even run long. That's how much I could talk about Nikola Jokic. It's incredible. And I'm going to lead you guys here. I've done some statistical research, going over some certain key points.
VORP?
Some VORP. You guys won't believe the VORP I found. I got to say this. This is a funny thing to say out loud. When I went and started looking at some of the numbers, I walked away thinking about Jokic, thinking like he might have even had a better season than I thought. Like some of the stuff I get into is even more encouraging than what my eyeballs showed me when you watch it. And I want to get into those. I'm going to start here. 27.1 points per game. This, I mean, obviously we know this is his highest. He surpassed last year's, point total. And by the way, he did it on fewer minutes. That's 0.7 more points per game than last year. So rounding up, a whole point more than last year, which was a huge leap. But it's actually 1.6 points more per 36 minutes, meaning, if you just assuming next year his minutes go up or whatever, you could expect even more points at this same rate, and then +2 per 100 possessions. I don't think people realize when they just look at the numbers and how his numbers went up this year. I don't think people realize it happened on fewer minutes. That was the first thing that this isn't exactly a deep dive, but this is the first thing I noticed when I'm looking at some of these numbers here.
Well, it happened in fewer minutes. It happened in fewer shots per game as well. He had a more efficient season than last year, except for the 3-point shooting. That kind of killed his efficiency, but
killed it.
It absolutely killed it. It demolished it. But the craziest part about him averaging more points than he did last year and going from 26 to 27 per game is that he did it being the only all-star level player. At some points in the season, he was the only above average offensive player on the Nuggets roster. And he got double and triple teamed every single night. And the goal that most opponents had over the second half of the season, especially, was to just get the ball out of his hands and make Denver's role players beat him. The fact that he raised his points per game when the talent around him dropped so significantly is just ridiculous.
A season-long balance and dance of you are our only hope, and yet we're also hopeless in the postseason if we lean on you to the point of absolute exhaustion. See second round last season, right? So big talking point was, when does Malone bring Jokic in the fourth quarters? But Malone also had to try to avoid running him into the ground before the high leverage game started. Just kind of remarkable that this Jokic season wasn't, it's not a stat inflation thing. It wasn't what happens if you just play 40 minutes and all we do is try to get you your numbers. It's just what happens if all we do is play through you. Yeah. And his level raised, but the efficiency didn't dip. In fact, it rose. It raised. And that's the part of this where usually when you scale up like this, you see some sort of give and take. And all he did was give.
Yeah. This Jokic's season was really the only redeeming thing that happened this season. We knew, we talked about it being Bones, you're right. But purgatory season, we knew that we were in trouble the entire time without the reserves coming back, the cavalry arriving. Never did. But all the same,
cavalry never arrived.
Cavalry never arrived. The cavalry was 50-50. It went
cavalry was 50. Ramping up for months.
the cavalry flipped tails and it was over. And so, but the point is that I'm going to look back fondly on this season because of the majesty that was Nikola Jokic. What I saw this guy accomplish, what I saw him do on a basketball court, and and I think it's okay to say at this point, we know that he's going to win his second MVP award. When, you guys are saying, the entire world was keyed in on him in such dramatic fashion, is just, it's hard to really wrap your head around what he just did. And not only that, this guy he just doesn't miss games. He just never misses any games unless he gets suspended for beating up one of the Morris twins, which I think we would all agree was a little bit more of a public service than anything. But you just look at
he did get hurt this year, which I think is going to come up later in the podcast, talking about where he dropped off a little. But I get your point.
I love that you have his 4 games missed for a rolled ankle or whatever it was, or was it a wrist? I don't know.
No, that's not it. That's not it. But okay, I'll get to it.
But it's wild. This, what a gift, man. This is the thing where you have to, after a season like this, you really have to look at what the point of it was. We knew that the outcome was not going to be in alliance with rings culture, but just, getting to watch him play 82 games or however many he played this year is just I don't know, man. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Well, so this gets me to one of the main questions I want to ask, which is his minutes did go down this year. Jokic's did. And I think when we looked at his year, we thought about, should Michael Malone brought him in earlier at times? And I think the answer is yes. But if we step back and think about the season of purgatory, what needed to be accomplished for you to feel good about it, and did those things happen? The best case scenario, I think realistic for the Nuggets this year, is that they somehow climbed up high enough to play the Utah Jazz. That was the best case scenario, and they could have beat them and then gotten lost in the second round to Phoenix or Golden State or what have you. I didn't need to see that. In hindsight, like now that I'm like emotionally removed from it, a week or whatever, I'm like, I feel like I learned what I needed to about this Nuggets team. And the fact that they lost in the first round in 5 games or whatever, at this point I can look at it and go, gets 5 months off.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like, would it have been cool if they beat the Jazz? It's always fun to beat the Jazz. Like, I would have loved to have beat the Jazz. That would have given us an extra week of entertainment. But from a narrative standpoint, from a what did you learn, I'm like, I don't really care. And so you look at that and go, should he have played 2 more minutes per game? Maybe, maybe not. He didn't get hurt. He didn't get too exhausted. He's able to play great all the way down the stretch, and the end result was more or less the same. So anyway, that's my perspective on the minutes per game sort of thing. But let's talk about the efficiency, because here's where it's crazy. He increased with a higher workload, with more eyeballs on him. He increased his effective field goal percentage from 0.60 or 60%, 60.2 to 62%. That's a career high. And even best, his extremely low usage sophomore season, which was to this date like an outlier of efficiency for him, in large part because, one, in my opinion, nobody knew who he was yet. So teams weren't scouting like his game. And 2, he had Jameer Nelson, a great point guard at the time, where it was like, hey, there's eyeballs on Gallo, eyeballs on Wilson Chandler, eyeballs on other people, and he was getting a lot of easy buckets. So to take that lower usage, lower impact, lower volume year and then increase it by 2%, and oh, by the way, it's up quite a bit over his career average is wild. And here's some numbers for you, Harrison. Players with 25 points per game and 62% effective field goal percentage in NBA history. Steph Curry in 2015, Jokic in 2022. That's how much of an outlier the volume plus efficiency was for Jokic. There's nobody that's even really close to what he did other than Steph Curry.
Yeah. What stood out when you're talking about his efficiency is just like he would get the ball on the block this season, and it was just a bucket. Like it was just a bucket. And I just go back to like thinking about how we talked about Jokic 3 years ago. It's like, well, does he want to score this night? Does he not want to score this night? Does he want to pass? Is he going to take the shots that he needs to? And like that is such like a not an argument anymore, because he's just totally past that, and he just knows what he needs to score the ball.
I agree.
And when there's 3 players on him, he'll pass it because he needs to. But just around the rim this year, he shot 72%. Is better than he did last year. The mid-range, his numbers were up across the board. 3-point shooting was the only place he dropped off. He's just automatic, man. Like I'm so like spoiled by watching him just operate around the paint. And we always talk about this when, watching him operate at double teams and throw these cross-court passes, and they're just plays that no other center can come close to making. And so, like, we're so jealous about how easy he passed out of double teams. But around the rim also, just like the ease at which he makes shots from 5 feet, from 10 feet, the floaters, the little finger rolls. Like, he just does stuff at a level that no other center does in the paint. And it's
no other player
it's once in a lifetime.
Well, you're getting ahead, because this is – I'm going to get to that in just a second, the 2-point, because that's the stats that when I was going through everything, it was one of the most encouraging but also the most mind-blowing. But, Eric, effective field goal percentage, again, it like weighs 3-pointers versus 2-pointers. So, like, Steph Curry doesn't have the best field goal percentage, but it's because he takes so many threes, he has a very high effective field goal percentage. Jokic, if you lined up the top 60 scorers in the NBA, Jokic has a better effective field goal percentage than all of them. Yeah. All of them. He's a volume scorer. So just for reference here, Anthony Simons, Terry Rozier, Norman Powell, these are guys that are in the top 60 of scoring per game, point per game scoring. Jokic is like 7th or something like that, or maybe it was 10th he ended the season with, but it was really high, 27 points per game. We're talking about guys that average 17 points per game and up. Of all those guys, Jokic was more efficient than every single one of them.
Yeah. I mean, I tweeted this the other night, like watching other teams play basketball and you watch other players approach the area that's 5 to 10 feet in front of the rim and like take floaters, take all kinds of shots. And you're like, what's wrong with you guys? That's supposed to go in every single time. What's the story here? Like it's ruined me for watching basketball. Like my expectations are, if a ball is let go of in an area that is near the rim, that thing is going through and not touching any part of the rim. Or if it does somehow get missed in like the most confusing fashion, it just gets tapped right back in. Like I mean, this guy, I don't know, man. I'm left with the vision of Jokic down the stretch in that last game, just like continually charging the lane and just like running down and these
on
like,
one leg.
On one leg, they weren't just like, set like just easy, centery type shots where you just kind of do a little easy push shot and you're taller than the guy in front of you. Like he was going in at full speed with like absolute precision, regardless of the fact of how quickly he was traveling forward. Like he's just unreal, man. Like his feel for the basketball and his ability to just, as we always say, and as he has said, being able to put it exactly where he wants, when he wants, is something that I just don't think that people can take for granted or like look beyond. It's just like, this is something that we've not seen before. And every, like the further along it goes, it makes less and less sense to me.
But the thing about I'm gonna give you a new stat to kind of react to. But the thing is he's always been great. It's just that this year he went up even more. And here's the thing: the guy that finally beats him, the 62nd top scorer in the NBA, is DeAndre Ayton, who has a better effective field goal percentage. The difference: 20% more of Ayton's attempts, and by the way, he takes half the attempts Jokic does, but 20% more are assisted. Like Ayton's a finisher. This is the thing. You have to go back to like guys taking the volume. There really is nobody taking fewer self-created shots and shooting it at that volume in history.
It's insane. And you almost wonder if it was to the point where, at least for the group we just saw, do we walk away thinking, could he have pushed it even more? Does that ratio of scoring to efficiency tell you, man, he could have been an even higher volume scorer? I am not bemoaning his approach to this season. Just sort of thinking out loud of the way he's rapidly ascended to tier 1A of volume scorers, elite scorers in the league. He's as efficient as any of them. And then, look, I like that floater that he got. I think when you factor in how efficient he was with the shot, and then also just Jokic on that spot of the floor, like on the short roll, just all the things the defense has to think about. He could pass it anywhere on the floor. And if he puts that shot up, it's going in. I just don't know. Is it the most advantageous offensive spot in basketball right now? It's
right, because everyone's protecting the rim. He's like, I don't care. I'm going to shoot from 5 feet, which is like, for me, a 5-footer is like everyone else's 2-footer.
It doesn't create maybe the same sense of panic and urgency as trying to guard that 3-headed monster in Golden State along the perimeter, maybe, right? With the panic Steph can create. But is Jokic putting as much pressure on defenses as anyone? And I think the answer right now is yes.
Yeah. I mean, we love the debate, like who is the best scorer in the NBA. If you just need a bucket, if you just need a bucket, Adam, right. You need a bucket. Who is going to get you a bucket? For me, this is Nikola Jokic. Like I would take him 10 times out of 10. Kevin Durant, that's who most people's answer is. He's going to settle for a 20-footer. Like, give me the guy who's going to get into the paint and get me a look there, who did it on a way higher efficiency this season.
Yeah, we watched Kevin Durant be presented with exact scenario and fail over and over and over in these playoffs. So
yeah, we saw Kevin Durant with definitely a better supporting cast than Nikola Jokic in the playoffs shoot like 40% from the field. We just saw that.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing, though. You asked a really interesting question, Vogt, about he shot so efficiently, it makes you wonder, can he dial it up even more? Like, is it worth 1% less on the EFG, but 4 points more? Here's my opinion. Maybe. We might find this out, by the way, in the coming years. Like, I don't rule it out. We're going to get to that shortly. But here's the thing. I think Jokic's brain is an algorithm. Like, that it just so perfectly takes in all information at all times and filters it almost subconsciously. Like, I don't think he's sitting there thinking about these things, but just subconsciously understands when to shoot, when to pass, when to press, when not to. And maybe it's not 100%, but it's like 99%. So here's the thing. That's a fun philosophical question and just one to wonder. But I kind of just feel like he knows better than we possibly could.
100%.
And I feel like the lines intersect at almost exactly where he's at, and that any more aggressive from him would probably be less productive for the team.
Can you guys hear this?
Yeah, what's going on?
The workout? No, thank God.
The real thing is just, it's not even really changing up that ratio. It's just when he passes, can it beat a more effective finishers? And that's, uncontrollable.
If we go to true shooting, I want to get through the scoring stuff before we take a break. But if we go to true shooting, so the difference between effective field goal percentage, that measures your shots, 2-pointers or 3-pointers. True shooting then factors in free throw attempts. So it also, basically the difference is true shooting accounts for how well you get to the line. One of the things, Jokic, you do the true shooting thing, same thing. In 25 points per game, 0.66 true shooting percentage. It's Jokic, Curry, and then you get prime Charles Barkley in there. He's the one guy that gets added into this elite efficiency and volume crossover. But here's why it's important. Jokic increased his free throw attempts per game by almost a full attempt per game. I know that sounds like a small amount, but I don't think it is, especially when you break it down month by month. At the end of the season, he was generating a lot more. He actually averaged 1.1 more free throw attempts per 36 minutes, and he had the 12th highest free throw attempt rate in the NBA amongst volume scorers, amongst guys that play like 20 minutes or more. So it was a sneaky thing that happened this year, but he actually got better at getting to the line.
Yeah, I think it's just about him adapting his game. Eric, you got to toggle the mute or something. Like you got to play with the mute a little bit.
I want everyone to hear this. If I could make this louder, I would. You don't understand. This is my work day. Like this is what I do during the day. So deal with it, I guess. All right, fine. I'll mute myself.
I think it was just about him adapting his game and continuing to grow his game. I also think he did get more respect from officials as the season went on. Like I think that was actually a real thing that happened.
Yep.
I think he figured something out, though, too. I think he learned a little bit more about how to draw fouls.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean by adapting his game and just kind of playing into that a little bit because, you know when Jokic sometimes will come down and he'll get a pick and pop at the top of the key and get his guy in the air and he could go into that guy and draw a foul, but he doesn't a lot because I actually just think he doesn't want to disrespect the game that way. And he doesn't want to just get that cheap foul. But I think he seeked out some cheaper fouls this season.
Yeah. Do you have something there?
Yeah, just quickly, in between grunts, if I may. The thing is even though he is getting more, the reason it doesn't seem like it because it's still woefully too few. Nikola Jokic just gets mugged and murdered every time. It's so frustrating to watch. I'm glad that it's he's getting a little bit more of a bump, and I agree with you, Win. A lot of it is the style in which he plays. He doesn't charge the rim that often, so the contact is generally his arms going straight up and them getting hit in midair as opposed to him having more violent body to body contact, which generally is what gets you foul calls in the NBA that James Harden and Joel Embiid are very aware of. And I love that Jokic doesn't just, as you say, he doesn't disrespect the game by just going for those cheap foul calls. But
I really think that's why he doesn't.
I agree.
I really think
I
so.
agree. I think that he has something called integrity. He's doesn't want to be looked at as a foul merchant that's just flopping around.
Milks fouls off ball. He does the arm wrap. He's not above.
Yeah, but not to the extent. Not to the extent.
I don't think it's that. I think what I think it is, Eric, is finesse. It's very hard to draw contact and finesse. You usually are trying
unless you're
to
a shooter.
Contact. What's that?
Yeah, unless you're a shooter, in which case there's no
the dumb freaking rules in the perimeter allow for that. You can't do a floater and stick a leg to the side and be like, my leg, he ran into my leg on my 3-foot floater. You just can't do that. You can do that if you're Dame Lillard from 35 feet, but the game's called differently inside and out. So I don't know. I love the integrity argument. I want to buy it. I just think it probably has more to do with the nature of how you get points when you play like Jokic versus somebody that's trying to go through contact to dunk it on you all the time draws contact easier.
Yeah, he might be wary of playing to a whistle that he hasn't gotten historically across his career. So it might be an inefficient approach,
Well, I'm late here, so let's hit our first break. On the other side, the single most encouraging stat that I found, and I'm telling you, when I saw it, I was like, Yoke's going to win a third MVP next year. I can't wait. We'll do that after the break.
Glad you're coming around to the take. Guys, Ivanka TV that you haven't been able to watch Avalanche games this season, if you were not able to watch Nuggets or Rapids games, check out Evoca TV. They got Altitude Sports. You can watch the Rapids, the Mammoth too. You also can access coverage of the Rams and the DU Pios. Evoca.tv/DNVR. Use the promo code DNVR. You're going to get $10 off your first 3 months. That's only $15 per month for the first 3 months, plus a receiver, no contracts, no hidden fees. Evoca.tv/DNVR. Use the code DNVR. You're going to get $10 off your first 3 months. Also at Lightshade Dispensary right now, if you guys want to pick up some Wana, here's the deal we got going on for you.
Wow.
You can go to any of Colorado's premier dispensary Lightshade locations. They've got 11 of them in the Denver Metro and Aurora areas. They've got the Barnum location now open, 1 block off 6th Ave and Federal. What Wana is if you need to catch up on some shut-eye after the big game, it can help you out with that. No matter when you take Wana, this well-rounded recipe will leave you feeling rested and refreshed in the morning. Over-the-counter pharmaceuticals, they knock you out with powerful drugs that leave you in a fog. But Wana Optimal's Fast Asleep Gummies offer a holistic plant-based solution that tackles the root cause of sleepiness like stress and pain. So again, you can find Wana at Colorado's premier dispensary, Lightshade. Podcast listeners can get 25% off non-sale items with the code DNVR. Again, guys, use the code DNVR, get 25% off non-sale items. Shop online at lightshade.com or pick up at a location near you.
The people want to know, Harrison, the hair, it's still MIA. Are you going to do this to the
He lost all of it. He lost it.
Really? Oh, no. Rough haircut?
It goes away after the
sad,
season.
Dude. So
After
sad.
the season.
Blew away.
All right. You guys ready for the stat that to me just like really blew my mind?
Talk to me, Maras.
Oh, baby. Give it to us.
On 2-point field goal attempts, Jokic raised his percentage 5% over last season and 6% over his career average. His career high now at 77 points. Or I'm sorry. So that was 5% just from 2. He raised it over last season, which was already great. But here's the crazy one. He shot 77.6% from 0 to 3 feet. That's an increase of 2.3% on of the efficiency, but on significantly higher volume. And here's why this is important to think about. The Nuggets had much worse spacing this year. The Nuggets had much fewer guys for the opponents to key in on and to focus in on. And also, by the way, I've seen this reported incorrectly. A lot of people are saying he had the most dunks ever. He actually didn't. He had fewer dunks than he had last year. And yet his efficiency in the restricted area went up. In my opinion, what this says, not by a little bit, 5% is an enormous amount. If you increase your percentage by 5% at the rim, in a season when you have way more attention, way more double teams, and also, by the way, less spacing, to me, and also here's the other crazy thing. Every single year of Jokic's career, every single season, his percentage at the rim has increased. This tells me, and it matches the eye test, Jokic has figured out how to dominate at the rim a little bit more each year. And now you talk about, oh, we're going to put Michael Porter in one corner. We're going to put Jamal Murray at the top of the key running pick and roll and this or that. And by the way, now we have this Jokic that has solved how to score get to the rim at a higher volume and score at the rim at a higher efficiency. To me, I look at that and it's not just the 1 year change. It's the every year getting better at the rim and at higher volume that I look at and I go, my God, he has learned how to be impossible to keep away from the basket.
Yeah, well, I think that also correlates with him getting stronger and more athletic every season too. Like he just moves people out of the way at a rate now that he didn't 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
He just carves out space like only a couple other centers do. So I think those two things definitely have something to do with it.
And this is part of what Draymond's talking about. That's a tough. He's far from soft. Part of me thinks like Draymond is so strong, his lower center of gravity. Part of me thinks that he's just like, yo, you guys don't realize that this is like a rhinoceros.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's the most underrated part of Jokic. Jokic is so skill and finesse forward, and that's how he's discussed and viewed with quite good reason. And particularly because he's juxtaposed with the undefined dominance, right, of Joel Embiid and that type of stuff, that we fail to think about Jokic as a redwood tree, which is exactly what he is.
Right.
And if he decides to try to move you 9.5 out of 10 times it's happening. It also speaks to, I could hear some of the hope and excitement in your voice too. Jokic doesn't talk to us about his offseason, right? The way maybe a LeBron would or whatever. But this is a guy who's thinking about the season, picking out specific ways to improve and coming back better. The question of how does Jokic get better, we'll get to it on this show, so I'm not going to step on those toes, but this has become an abstract type of conversation now.
That's so true.
It was once you could point to little elements.
It's so true.
Do you guys remember there was a time when Jokic probably still needed a left hand?
Right. Oh, I love this. You're right. Yeah, we used to be able to point towards, hey, he could do this or this. Now they really are existential.
He was scoring on Draymond with his left in a crowded paint without replacement level teammates on the floor at times. So it's that thing where because Jokic doesn't spell it out for us, maybe we forget to attribute it to him, but he's thinking about the season, he's reflecting, and he's getting better at important specific parts of the game as his career goes on.
Eric, let me rattle this off for you. Rookie season from 0 to 3 feet, 62%. Sophomore, 67. Third year, 67. Fourth year, 69. Fifth year, 70.
Nice.
Fifth year, 72. Fifth year, 72. Sixth year, 75. Last year, 78. That is a 15% increase at the rim. And that, by the way, is like 3% every year from at the start of his career. That's just a steady increase. To me, I look at that. I think it's hard to look at that and not see a trend of, wow, this guy has solved how to get to the rim and score.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it's so true. The thing about Nikola Jokic that is not appreciated by people that aren't us or people that in the world of the Nuggets is just exactly what you guys are saying. Like his combination of power and finesse is so underappreciated and so like unrecognized by so many. It's like, because yes, he will bump his way in and then he will okie doke you with like unbelievable footwork. He will make a fool of your most athletic center. There's nothing more joyful than watching Jokic go up against a low IQ, high athletic center, like a guy that like just want like Powell on the Mavericks or
DeAndre Jordan,
Whiteside or
the Whiteside when he turned around and realized he could just. Do you remember that one where he just?
My favorite.
Mitchell Robinson had a good run.
Mitchell Robinson. My favorite though is still DeAndre Jordan, like that last year at the Clippers where he fouled himself out because he was like, "F this, I'm done guarding this.
I'm gonna go home."
It's crazy, but Nicholas, his strength is the reason he doesn't. Foul calls. We talk about this all the time. Like he is a rhinoceros. He is a live oak. He is an immovable object, and people are allowed to just literally just swing 2x4s at him all game long to knock him out. And the problem is that like it doesn't affect him like it would a lesser player. Like if he was affected by people just slapping him like a Marcus Smart or something, where that person that player would just slide across the floor like they'd been thrown out of a moving car. Like Jokic just like takes it, and then you look back and you're like, oh, cool, he's bleeding again. I can't help but notice he's had no foul calls for him this entire game. But that's probably, what are you going to do? He's not aggressive. It's just like, that might be the next evolution to his game. Honestly, is just being able to look without flopping, just like bring more attention. Like he needs to get that like terrible basketball player scream that hey every time you get hit and go hey hey.
Eric, I'm telling you, he has too much respect for the game.
Too much integrity.
Like that.
You are so ridiculous. Let me throw some more at you because we got to keep it moving, man. We're this Yo Club. It's overwhelming. He also shot 60.6% from 3 to 10 feet, which is that floater zone, which is the second best of his career, but best since his sophomore season. Which again, he was a different player in his sophomore season, which was the first year where he got the keys to the offense or whatever. But still, he was more of a setup guy. This is the first year. It's like I'm a scorer first and foremost. So for him to have the best season at the rim and second best season, really the best season on volume of his career from 3 to 10 feet, that's the big difference. And by the way, he took a ton of shots from that zone too. It reminds me, Vogt, of LeBron 2013 when LeBron stopped taking threes or whatever. Jokic this year took the fewest number of 10 to 16 foot mid-rangers since his rookie season, basically the same as his rookie season. And he took the fewest numbers of long 16 to 3-point line, long mid-range jumpers, the fewest of his career. He's cut those out. And those he was really good at, he just doesn't take them anymore. He's replaced those with shots at the rim and in the floater zone. To me, this is a player that is figured out where he is best and has found a way to only exist in those spots, which a lot of players know where they're best. It's how do I get volume shots from those spots because everyone else knows that's where I'm best. Doesn't matter. This is the season where Jokic got over the hump where he's like, I know where I'm best from. I get to those spots, and nobody can stop me when I'm there.
Yeah, that's it. I think getting to those spots too, right? And just sort of – I think Jokic is so good at understanding and playing off of the flow of the game that at times he can do himself a disservice, right, of hijacking that flow and just sort of, I think him realizing I can force my way to my most effective spots on the floor and just operate out of there all day long.
Yeah.
I think speaks to an advanced understanding of his value as a scorer, of the value of each possession. I mean, we could do this show for 2 hours and it would be a good show. It's just you're running out of ways to talk about. I mean, offensively, I do think we are rapidly approaching a perfect player. I mean, you could talk about curbing turnovers and 3-point shooting. But again, to this point, okay, the 3-point shot, he wasn't feeling it this year. Well, he just cut it out altogether. And
right.
There's an advanced understanding right now. I've said this before, but it is Neo reading the code out there right now and just seeing ones and zeros.
But I'm going to throw this new one to you. So 3-point field goal percentage this year, he was only 33.7%. Here's my question to you. Are we sure this was a down year for him from three? It was actually the second highest year of his last four. It was a career high attempts. I think we all feel like was down because it wasn't last year. Last year he had he was really good from three, but that was the outlier. This year was actually more in line with his career averages. So this is my question. Is he more than a 34% 3-point shooter? Is that kind of what we should expect from him?
I think he is. And this is what I was referring to earlier in the show when I was talking about how he took a step back because of an injury in one stat. And I really wonder if the wrist injury that he had early in the season kind of messed up his 3-point shooting for the rest of the year. Like his wrist bothered him at times throughout the second half of the season. Like it did. And if you look at his splits, his first 14 games of the season, it was only 14 games, but up until that wrist injury, he was shooting 41% from three. And if you look at his last 60 games, he shot 32%. So that doesn't tell us that it was definitely the wrist, but I think it definitely had a lot to do with it. And it definitely hurt him because he obviously didn't trust the 3-point shot late in the season. Like over the second half of the year, he did not want to take threes, where I feel like early in the season, the first month or so, he was pretty confident in his three, shooting 40+%. So I definitely think he's a better 3-point shooter than he showed this year.
What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, the thing about Jokic's shot is that particularly like the further out you go, it's like there's so much motion to it. It's like a big, like slow, like
you're right. Catapult.
Yeah, not a catapult. What is the other one I'm trying to think of? The whatever. Anyway, but there's just like a lot of not an atlatl that helps you throw an ancient spear. No, it's called
I was trying to figure out what possibly.
I know it's the one that it's like they use it in pumpkin chunkin. Whatever.
Oh, are you talking about like you wrap it in a net and you pull it?
Yeah, like and it goes and like swings.
Is that not a catapult?
No, catapult is a trebuchet. Thank you, Steve. A trebuchet. Jokic's 3-point shot is more trebuchet-like than his interior shot, which is more catapult-like. There's just so much motion involved. He has to raise it up. He has to use a lot more, obviously, like a lot more force with his arms. And there's just like a lot more room for air. I wonder if there's like some way he can streamline that shot, honestly.
Can I tell you something? And this is the dumbest thing we do is give like great players advice. It's like giving Steph Curry advice on how to like.
I mean, come on, you could observe things and
I think
share his observations.
I think there's like tweaks he should make to the form of his 3-point shot because I think there are things that serve him on the shots he takes the most of inside the rim that don't serve him from the farther out you get. And one of those is his feet are relatively close together for a shooter. And I think that he can just get a little bit of a wider base on threes. I wonder, and it'd be an interesting question. I don't know if he'd tell you. I also don't know how much he's going to work on his game this summer. He deserves some time off. I'm sure he'll get back in the lab at some point. But to me, I think changing some aspects of his form on three are in line. He's been a 33% 3-point shooter for 7 years now. I think it's worth being like, is this an area that I probably can go to the lab and rework from the ground up a little bit?
You know who he should call is Drew Hanlon.
Lethal shooter. Can you imagine?
I think Drew Hanlon would actually make Jokic a worse offensive player.
There's no question, man.
Like if he got in the lab with Drew Hanlon, his efficiency would drop.
What if Jokic like trained with Drew Hanlon all offseason and then he comes back and he's just like diving on the floor and like screaming for fouls and like falling down on every play and stuff.
Behind the back sidestep jumpers. They're like, what the hell's Jokic doing? I mean, it looks cool, but I mean, what are we doing here? Anyway, just something, the 3-point shot I'm just not convinced of. Let's get to the rebounds. 13.8 rebounds per game is obviously huge. He led the NBA in defensive rebound percentage, which is like, I think, an insane thing. People don't realize how impressive that was. He was second in the NBA in overall rebound percentage behind Gobert, but led the NBA in contested rebounds per game at 6.1. Gobert behind him at 5.8. That to me is like, when people talk about the rebounding, half of his rebounds are contested, man. They're like 50-50s that he just happens to grab at a higher rate than anyone else in the NBA. And then here's what's crazy. Denver finished 19th in offensive rebound percentage this year. I told you they've been top 3 all the time. Jokic's offensive rebound rate didn't drop at all. So this is how crazy it is. Jokic stayed the same, and the Nuggets went from 3rd to 19th. That just shows you how different the team was this year. Around
rebounding is insane to me, guys, because it's the effort and the production of a rebounding specialist, right? I mean, Gobert is Gobert is an exceptional player, but he's asked to do roughly half of the things Jokic is asked to do. To be not, per game, just raw totals, no matter how you slice it, Jokic is one of the premier rebounders in this league. And there have been guys who have played an entire decade-long career in this league only doing that and not doing it at the level that Jokic does.
I love this comment here, though, from Akil, who says that MPJ's offensive rebounding is underrated. A lot of players, like those types of stats are underrated. And when you don't have them, you notice holy crap, yep. 3rd to 19th. And so when we break Michael Porter down as a player, that's one of the things that's we can't just say the offensive rebounding doesn't mean anything. It actually means a lot. And not just his rebounding, but I do think the spacing he provides actually makes it easier for other guys to rebound too. So Michael Porter has his flaws, but there's some things he just naturally brings to the table that he doesn't have to perform. He just does them by being on the court.
And they kind of if you overlap it with Jeff Green, you're just oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice. But
can we rate Michael Porter?
It tailed off towards the end of the season. But you talk about how much he was asked to do and was able to do defensively, how much attention was on him, and yet he was still able to be this behemoth in the paint. To have anything left in the reserve to be that dominant of a rebounder, I don't understand how he is able to walk by the end of the season. I don't get it.
I think we're gonna get
custom loafers now.
Loafer.
Yeah.
Different man, baby.
I got to run through the last here and then in the final segment. So these are a lot of statistical ones, but then I want to talk about how he got there and some of the other aspects of it. But lastly, the Nuggets had a 117 offensive rating with Jokic on the court this year. Last year, that was a 120 offensive rating. The Nuggets were the 6th best offense this year. Guess what they were last year?
7th.
6th. The Nuggets relative scoring efficiency went down this year. I think who knows why? Maybe some of the new rules, who knows what. But the Nuggets basically were the same team on offense this year as they were last year, which to me is both exciting, but also I think something that I'm very curious to see if it happens next year. Well, it's just confusing in that
we're missing our 2 top players.
Yeah, do they not add something, or was Jokic so good that he actually elevated them? It's a question that I think I have a sense of. I think Jokic just got better and he carried him that way. But it is at least worth asking, hey, I don't know. They seem to have been the same offensive team as they were last year, even without their second and third offensive players. So take that for what you will. Go ahead. Quick thought on it?
But too, I think, predictable or easy to boil down by the end of the season. And so it's not necessarily about effectiveness so much as it is harder to game plan for, harder to defend, harder to place in the point.
Yeah. Great point.
Also without Jokic, I think they had a 105 offensive rating this year. And last year it was even worse.
That's insane.
Just when he was off the floor.
That's pretty crazy, man. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, though, I want to hear everybody in the comments now. A super producer here is going to be marking these for us. What was Jokic's best game this season? What was his best moment? Give us some nominations there. We have ours, but we'll talk about that on the other side as well as kind of wrap up some of these thoughts. Well, Eric, I never count on you to do these there. You play off of us on these things.
Your Colorado rugby team, the American Raptors, Rugby Town USA's newest rugby team. The American Raptors are athletes who have competed at the highest levels of their respective sports. They're former pros in football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, soccer, track and field. They've all come together to make this all-star American Raptors rugby team. They play at Infinity Park in Glendale. Go to AmericanRaptors.com and grab your free ticket there for the upcoming season. Their games stream at AmericanRaptors.com as well. Also, check out the DNVR Rugby Podcast with Colton Strickler. Hit subscribe on that for all your latest news from the rugby world. Also, let's throw in a DraftKings pick of the week.
Let's do it.
Got one.
Why not?
There.
I can't wait to hear what you go with tonight.
Heat tonight. We got the Mavs and Suns tonight.
Oh, man. Pick the Suns to win the series in 5.
Yeah? Do you like the Suns tonight?
Yes.
I kind of want to take the Mavs tonight.
Do it, bro.
Wow.
Do it.
DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week, and Harrison's going to get wild.
I'm taking Dallas on the road in game 1. Those game 1 road dogs, you know?
We need
Harrison loves the Mavericks.
We need to get a Dev Lock versus a Harrison pick of the week and see the statistical comparison.
I don't like my chances there, but I like the Mavs tonight.
I like how Harrison's picks of the week are always like not the best lock he can find, just the most interesting game. That he could
I mean, if I really wanted to make a pick of the league, it'd be the Heat over the 76ers tonight. But I mean,
there it is.
The odds suck. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Timberwolves should have won that game, Christian. They should have.
The pick of the week is no place for a heart-based gambling pick.
I love it. Harrison's own gambling show. We can bring us back here. Harrison's own gambling show that is just like has nothing to do with winning or losing. It's just who does he hate the most. Like, all right.
I love it.
It's like what game do you really want to watch tonight and have money riding?
Yeah.
Like that's what
that's fallacy or just the trap you can fall into with sports bet, where you think that you can buy the outcome you're looking for by betting it. I love it.
I'll tell you what, man. How do you guys feel about this? Little side note. I'm watching, Warriors Grizzlies yesterday. I can't believe how hard I'm pulling for Warriors. And I know everybody has a different perspective on this. Some people are like, they beat us, so F them. I'm like, look, I want the Warriors to not lose a game in the playoffs. Not to be the only team to win. To me, it's like elevates Denver and what they did. So this is my thing. I was a little frustrated when Draymond got thrown out. I'm like, oh God, they might lose. But then when they win anyway, I'm like, hell yeah, I hope they sweep them. Makes Denver look so much better.
Couldn't agree more. Could not
agree
more.
It could be a shorter series than a lot of people think. Like Memphis had to get that game last night.
I agree with that one. People are like, oh, look, Golden State escaped. I'm like, false. They took game 1 on the road, and Draymond got ejected.
If they win the next one, which they should be favored in, if they win and they get to go back home for 2 games, that's like different from Denver. They won 2 at home and then had to go on the road. You get 2 on the road and you have 2 games at Chase. Like, come on, man.
I nothing in me. I'm rooting for nothing more than the Warriors to not lose another game in the playoffs, win the championship, and then it's just like, well, what are you going to do? It's the championship, goddamn Warriors. Like,
I mean, man, the Nuggets were 3 games away from the championship, man. Without all these guys, it should be great. Man, Vogt really got down somehow, like after the first segment. Just really, really sad over here.
I think I've got resting bitch face, man. I'm sitting here.
Dude, you totally have RBF, and you're sitting in a darkened room. Like you seem like very emo right now, and you're wearing like a skater cut. Yeah.
Actually, I think it's a good skater cut, though. It does make him look like a middle.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I'm not critiquing the look. I'm just saying, like you're picking up what's being put down, which is a guy wearing a beanie wearing in a darkened room.
I'm way too insecure to have this job. It was not on the list.
We gotta keep it moving. All right, best game of the year. I'll go first because I have the right answer. It was the Clippers game. I'm telling you,
it's the wrong answer. Okay.
I love this. To me, the Clippers win in OT where Jokic scored like 30 points over the final 10 minutes of that game. To me, that stretch that he played was probably not just the greatest stretch of his career. I think it was as good as a player can play over a 10 or 15, whatever it was, 15-minute stretch. We've only seen players reach that level. We've never seen him surpass it. To me, it was incredible. He did a little bit of everything. And the best of all, it had a very memorable conclusion, which was the skip pass to Aaron Gordon in the corner, basically at the buzzer. It was just a perfect run with a perfect ending.
That's exactly the right answer. That was the game we saw Jokic go ISO. We saw Jokic clear people out at the top of the goddamn key and then just go to town, unstoppable. That was the most hyped I've ever been for a Jokic performance. I was losing my mind because I thought this was opening up the new era of just bully ball Jokic, which it did and it didn't. But like I was like, holy, please, that's it.
There was also this element, right, of the Clippers had figured out how to defend that iteration of Denver, particularly just post Jokic up and try to get him the ball and hope he does his thing. And we were seeing the give and take of when your best player is a center and how teams can prepare for that without elite guard play. And Jokic said, all of that. I'm just going to start Euro stomping through the lane. I don't care how many people are in my way. And the Euro stomp was just like full rampage video game, like Godzilla knocking down buildings.
I love the Euro stomp when it finishes with him shooting it off the backboard and like it's like the easiest little mic and drill layup, and it's so funny because it's like you just made a hard move through traffic and you finished it with the most disrespectful style of layup you could possibly do.
Yeah.
All right, Wind. Where did we all go wrong?
So that was number 2 on my list. Number 1 on my list was the overtime win against the Pelicans. This was as dominant as I've ever seen Jokic in his career. And if you remember back to that game, the Nuggets were down or they were up by 21. Then they blew a 21-point lead.
This was actually the tipping scale for me.
Then Jokic scored 30 of his 46 in the fourth quarter in overtime to beat the Pelicans.
It's insane, man.
Also on that night, Michael Malone was ejected from the game in the third quarter while the Nuggets were just unraveling. But if I think about just this season, and this season for me is just defined by dominance, like how dominant Jokic was every single night. That game, I know he scored 49 in the Clippers game. He had 46 in this game, but I've never seen just a stretch of a game where he's been more dominant in his career. So
Adelman brought him back with 11 minutes. That was the difference. Adelman, remember, he brought him back like right into the fourth quarter. It was like, go ahead and do your thing. And you're right. He just carried him back play by play, and he had that look in his eye of like, let me see if I can do this. I'm curious how I can do it. That game's a worthy one. The other candidates I would give, games 3, 4, and 5 of this playoffs to me were honestly like, I know the numbers aren't quite as eye-popping as those two games were, but when you factor in just the stakes, the fact that you're going up against the greatest defender of a generation and the whole team's keyed in on you and all of those things, the way he dominated 3, 4, and 5 individually was like, by game 5, I just felt like he was casually dominating Draymond Green. Like just, it wasn't that Draymond was doing everything he could and some of the plays, fake, reverse, and it was like, you're not even close, man. And I just, he reached a level to me where I was like, holy hell. Here's what it is. And I know we've kind of put a button on that series already. We forget what locked in Jokic is. Like Jokic in the regular season is a great player, and he locks in sometimes like these two games, the fourth quarter and overtime, he locked in for those moments. I feel like Jokic locked into that series by game 3 to where it's like, what does it look like when he is 100% focused on basketball? And turns out it's that even Draymond Green is hopeless against him.
Strong agree. I'm going to go with win, though. I had the same one, too. That Pelicans game to me. The other thing, too, was it was on the defensive side as well in that fourth quarter and overtime period.
4 blocks and 3 steals in that game.
Yep. He almost put up the 5 by 5, with the first 3 being 46, 12, and 11, just some casual light work. But Wind hit the nail on the head, which is as we all were, when you're watching that game at that 11-minute mark, that game could not feel less winnable. It just couldn't. And I know it's just the Pelicans or whatever, but a pesky team all year. And also, I know this team was nowhere near that level, but growing up on LeBron, you hear all the Jordan myths every single day, right? And you hear about those games throughout the regular season that your team just should drop for whatever reason, but Jordan wouldn't let them. Jordan just refused to lose. And that, to me, was the Pelicans game for Jokic of just, there's like a 2% win expectancy here, and I am not letting it play out that way. And the utter refusal to resign to what felt like reality. It was this, it was just this where you shake your head and you go, even us four are possibly underrating this fella.
So
no chance.
If we go here, I know.
Wait,
Here,
I have a sneaky nomination, that I don't, that requires all things considered being the top game, which is the game that they played against the Philadelphia 76ers, where they beat the Philadelphia 76ers. And I believe that was the game that flipped the MVP race in his favor.
It did, for sure.
And it was because he played such a complete game, and people, like, this is what required, like, the raw numbers, all things considered, like, it wasn't just his best game, but like the fact that all eyes were on him. It was billed as basically MVP candidate versus MVP candidate, and he came out on the better end, even having scored fewer points, because people who don't watch him were able to see, like, that skip pass he made.
And by the end of it, people were like, he has the better supporting cast. It's like,
yes, Bones Highland came out again, as the reason that he. But to me, there was that game outside of the playoffs had the most anticipation and had the most eyes on it and had the most weight associated with it, and he came out looking incredible and literally, in my mind, won the MVP that night.
It's honestly is a good one. I just can't give it best game, but it was
okay. Well, screw
all
you.
The reasons you said. Go to the chat here. We got Clippers. We got Clippers in New Orleans, which of course, again, one was we went to. Headband Jokic. I can't believe Headband Jokic wasn't one.
Well, that's coming up next. I think that's coming next.
Can I tell you, that was the only game I didn't watch this entire year, and I was able to monitor it.
You don't even know, Eric. This was actually tailor-made for you, because while those while those other two games were maybe more impressive from like what happened, that game was more iconic in the way that it went down. Like Jokic has to put it on his head, and all of a sudden he's transformed. By the way, we haven't talked enough about how great Headband Jokic. It was so great in particular because it's the one and only time they decided to go with red accessories on white uniform.
Oh my God!
He had a headband on the exact game when it was most ridiculous to have.
Looked like freaking Rudolph out there.
God damn it! I hate that you brought up Headband Jokic game. Of course, that's probably the right answer.
Hey,
I don't know.
Headband Jokic, Eric, is the next category, which is best moment. And the best moment of the season
when he put on the
headband. It's when Jokic became the first player in NBA history with 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists in a red headband.
That was the game? Was that what an iconic moment?
That was the best moment of the season.
Here, can you take me out of here?
Poor Eric freaking missed it for a dinner.
Like, to do that, to accomplish that while wearing a red headband is up there with the great feats of our existence.
Somebody in here also has Jokic to Monte against Golden State. Reminds me a lot of the Clippers game, but he had a better game against the Clippers in that one, so I'm going to have to go there. The Toronto block, he had no shortage of block shots.
Yeah.
That one was really huge. I see that in here. Here's an interesting one I've seen a few times. The Miami game, triple-double and fight. Now, here's the thing about this. I don't want to relitigate the fight or do.
Wasn't a fight.
Well, the Miami game, the thing about it was Miami is the number one seed in the East. They're one of the best teams, been one of the best teams all year. Jokic dominated that game.
The
stats maybe weren't up there with the other games, but they were no less like that game as much as any one was like, yeah, that's the best player on the court, and that Miami Heat team is like hopeless against him. And by the way, it happened twice against them. But Bam Adebayo, good defender, whatever, didn't matter. Jokic so thoroughly dominated him that Markieff Morris tried to get a little dirty with him. Jokic obviously got dirty back. The rest is history. But that game is honestly a great nomination just because it was so incredible.
If you ask anybody that's not a Nuggets fan what their top memory of Jokic was this season, it was that game and the thing with Markieff Morris.
And somebody says Miami street cred boost. This is one of the things, like, it's weird to talk about because Jokic like, again, I don't want to sit here and glorify him hurting Markieff the way he did. It's like uncomfortable now, some of the like details or this or that. But what I will say is there is something to Jokic. That moment, in my opinion, solidified Jokic as do not mess with this guy. And we have these players throughout history where we're like, man, I don't know. One guy tested him one time and he broke his orbital bone. Like back in the 80s, we glorified this shit, right? We were like, how awesome is this? I know we don't do that anymore. But that game to me tilted things in the favor where people were like, you know what? Jokic's a real one. And by the way, not just that one, but he got hurt shortly after. When did he return? At Miami, just like, F you, I'm not afraid. What do you think? I'm coming. I could take this game off. No one would say anything, but no, I'm coming back at Miami. By the way, dominated again and got the W.
Joke around and find out, baby. Joke around and find out.
Whiplash is terrifying. And the part where he was actually hurt, I'm not like, I have no interest in glorifying that or any of it. That's my moment of the year for Jokic. I'm not trying to go the petty route. I think you just talked about it. I'll say this. It was the moment in the year when I realized the way people were seeing and talking about Jokic had changed forever. Yeah. It was when I realized maybe it won't be on our level, but this guy is in that club now. And you're right. I mean, look, we've all heard those stories of all the great legend. You didn't have to be a tough guy to have a legendary scrap under your belt. And I'm not advocating for that version of the NBA. But my point is the way Jokic did that and the conversation the next day was only about how you shouldn't mess with this guy.
Right.
Only about that. And I do think, to me, look, the injury I don't love, but the part where people realized, look, this guy's not sweet like that. And this is a dude we have to worry about in more ways than one. I kind of think it's his defining moment of the year.
That is the moment when the aristocracy of former NBA players started respecting him.
Yes.
Like the Isaiah Thomases of the world. Like they were fans of him before then, but at that moment they're like, all right, this is a real dude right here.
We all remember when he got in Jay Crowder's face years back and Jay Crowder backed down to. We all remember when Devin Booker tried to get in his face and Jokic just like big boyed him. Like he has these moments that I think people kind of have known, but you're right that was one. And it was also like Jimmy Butler, freaking Udonis Haslem, those guys coming out afterwards and being like, hey man, I like Jokic. Like just think about how hurt that is that these guys were like, I don't know, like parts of it I don't like, but I get it. Like that's just the craziest thing. Like you're right, the street cred. We got to keep moving, Eric. So another one here I love that somebody brought up, Embiid dropping 50 and then Jokic having that 49-point almost triple double was like another really, really good one. Because I just remember that game was like Embiid's stats were so crazy, and you're like, look, there it is. And then 2 hours later, just put up an even better line, and you're like, wow.
You know what's an underrated game/moment of the year for him too? Harrison Wind tweeted Nikola Jokic with Hall of Fame harness racer Tim Tetrick in the winner's circle at Meadowlands Racetrack back in December. Then side by side with the picture of Jokic repping Tim Tetrick gear on national TV, 38, 18, and 6 on the Lakers. That's my most Jokic moment.
That is the most Jokic moment.
Not sure Tim Tetrick ever envisioned seeing his gear repped in the hallway walk on ABC basketball.
I mean, if you're not Team Tetrick, like you're nothing. Like, come on.
I hate to admit this one. Jokic pass over Spurs. Help me out here. Which one was this?
It was the slider. It's the one where he throws a slider into the corner.
Yeah, he curved the bullet like in that movie Wanted, curved it around.
Yeah. Are you talking about the straight pass? The straight pass? I'm gonna have to go back because I thought that was last year.
It's a slinger.
It went across the entire
window across to the corner, but it's a slider.
And it like almost hit Derek White in the head.
Back when I thought that was last year. Yeah, I could be wrong. This year was just so long.
No, it was this year. He was like posting up Pirtle and like.
Man, it's crazy that was this year. I could have swore that was last year. And then we have Ben Hawk here. Says early OT win in New Orleans, 39-11-11. They just a lot of the Sombor shuffle he missed in regulation, but ends up winning it. No shortage of great games from Jokic. We could do this game all day long. A couple other ones here. What changed for him this season? To me, this is the most important thing. We talked about the scoring numbers. I honestly believe the scoring mentality changed. Jokic's famous line: assist makes two people happy. Scoring makes one person happy. I think Jokic's philosophy on that has shifted a little. I think this is the year Jokic enjoyed scoring. I think now it's like assist makes two people happy. Scoring makes me really happy. Happy for at least two people's worth.
He's like, scoring makes one person happy. Missing the shot after a perfect assist makes two people angry.
It makes him happy. Scoring only makes him happy because he's winning games. Like,
I don't know.
the only...
I don't know, Harrison. Like, I genuinely don't. This is the thing. This is why I wanted to bring up this topic. He had the comment where he had the assist to the corner to Will Barton, and he was asked about it. He's like, well, I wanted to shoot it, but they doubled so hard I had to pass. And he had a couple of those. Like, earlier in the year, he was asked game-winning assist or game-winning shot. And he's like, I would rather have game-winning shot. I don't think he says this 2 years ago. I think this is a 2-year transformation in him where he's gone from a passer and playmaker who can score at a high level to a guy who – his scoring might be his best trait. I know that's crazy, but his scoring is now on par with his passing, and that it's like he is as good of a scorer as he is a passer. And I think going forward, it's the biggest question next year. I see a lot of people he's going to average a triple-double, maybe. I think there's a chance next year he comes out and just averages 30 points per game because he's like, you know what? Passing comes naturally. I don't have to think about it. Scoring, if I just do it every time, I end up getting 10 assists anyway because I'm triple teamed too often. So I don't know. To me, tell me if I'm right. Harrison's disagreeing it, but what do you guys think about it? Did it flip where he enjoys scoring more than you ever expected?
I don't know if he necessarily enjoys it more, but I kind of agree with the point about it getting to that level in terms of how effective he is with it. And I kind of think one of the big things Jokic learned this year was if they're not doubling or if that's a mismatch, I just have to go. Like I just have to make them feel that. And there's a chance that getting his other guys back actually highlights that, right? I mean, like, shouldn't he just have easier matchups? Shouldn't there just be less help? And is it possible that what those 5 on the floor calls for is just Jokic scoring more?
Yeah, I don't think he enjoys it more. What I think it is Jokic's goal every single night is to do what he needs to do at the highest level to win the game. And this season, he realized that scoring more is what he needs to do to win as many games as possible. I think that's the difference here.
Going to his scoring, a lot of this is necessity. Last year, he had 17 games under 20 points. He had some higher peaks, but he had more consistently lower games. This year, he had 8. And let me run through some of those. He had 8 points in a 32-point win against Portland. He had 11 points in a 31-point win against Dallas. He had 17 points in a 37-point win against the Lakers. He had a 18-point game in a 5-point win. He had a couple losses in there, but most of those low-scoring totals, more than half of them, came in 30-point blowouts. Like, to me, this is the biggest difference is he didn't have bad scoring games. Like this year, he got 20 basically whenever he wanted, and then it was just up from there. To me, next year, I don't think he's going to average 30. I think it's going to be 26 or 27, but I don't expect a drop off because I do think he's gotten to a point where he's so good at scoring. And why wouldn't you press the envelope every single time when you're as good as he is at scoring it? And the pass, I just think Jokic always makes the right play. And next year, the right play is going to be for him to be as aggressive as he was this year because it's going to put even more pressure on teams to double off of him.
Right. Make them double when they absolutely do not want to. Force them.
He's going to be so dominant that people are running off of MPJ to stop Jokic in the post. And it's like, wow, you're going to leave open a 50% corner 3-point shooter. So where did he show the most improvement? Aggression, conditioning. You mentioned this a few times. Jokic, part of why he was able to do this is this was the best conditioned season he's ever had. And I think that's the most underrated part of it is he was so good at just keeping going. This is another part of that tough guy or whatever it was Draymond said. I always come back to Harrison. Your interview with Dayon this year was so interesting because when you asked him how Jokic can get better, he said reading the game. He's like, believe it or not, he can actually get better. This is a season where I think he actually got better at that by a meaningful amount, reading the game.
And the beautiful thing about getting better at reading the game is like there's no limit to how good you can get at reading the game. You can always read the game better and better and better. And like Jokic reads the game at such a high level that it's tough to just think about what it would look like when he's reading the game like 20% better than he is now, considering he already like breaks basketball on a nightly basis. But that's really where I think his biggest improvement to me was maybe outside of just his aggression game in, game out. It's like dominating just every single aspect of the flow of a game. He did that at a level this season that I can't remember ever seeing another player do. I mean, I really don't, since at least I've been covering the NBA.
So when we get into what should we expect from him next year, part of why I think his scoring will stay the same or maybe improve. His 2 highest scoring months this season, March and April. He became a better scorer as the season went on. In fact, you can track that month by month and see a little bit of an improvement month over month. I just think scoring became like he had to do it, and now he's elite at it. You love doing things that you are elite at. He has been an elite passer since his rookie season. He has not been an elite volume scorer until recently, and he has been better at that over the last 3 months of his career than he was at any other point. I think it's an added weapon that it's like, of course I'm going to play with this toy I have. I can score on anyone. Why wouldn't I score on everyone? So next year I expect the same thing. Here's the last thing I'll say though. I think the Nuggets were so heliocentric, meaning everything revolved around him this year to an incredible degree. And I think it's the best option every single time down court to play through him. It's not the best option in the playoffs when teams start to try to take things away. One of the challenges next year is going to be, how do we play through Michael Porter a little bit more, even though it's a worse option than playing through Jokic, but that way we have it in our arsenal and that it's 10% better in April than it was in November. That's going to be a real challenge. Some of this with Jamal Murray, they already do because he respects Jamal Murray and Jamal Murray's earned it and done it at the highest levels. But next year, I think the Nuggets have to become less play through Jokic less, even though it would be smarter in the regular season to play through him every time.
It's like in football when you try to mix in the run. Like nobody actually wants to run. Everybody just wants to pass every single time. But you've got to run the ball just to like make the defense think there's a small chance it might be coming. Like you want to pass every time, just like you want to play through Jokic every time. But you got to mix it up a little.
This also plays into my answer for one of the ways he can improve next season. Don't laugh at me, but how about being an even better teammate? And for me, part of it will be Porter.
So true.
But just so particularly, he's entitled to this, what I'm about to describe, by the way. But the body language, the throwing his hands in the air, the visible, palpable frustration, can that be replaced with, now again, I don't know what it's like to work with Porter day to day, but can that be replaced with constructive dialogue, showing him, explaining some things? You know what's on my short list for Nuggets fan fiction that'll never happen? What if Porter and Gordon went to Serbia for a month this summer and they just watched film together? They just watched film together.
What if they went for 10 days?
They just watched film together. Do you know what I mean? And I'm serious, though.
This is the ultimate fan.
It'll never, ever, ever, ever happen. But do you know what I mean? If Jokic could replace the visible frustration with whatever him imparting his wisdom looks like.
Jokic has only ever gotten one player to Serbia. Just one guy.
Gary Harris.
Gary.
I know, it's so sad. I will say, though, and I'm curious what you think about this, Eric, but, I mean, Kobe Bryant, let's rewind to 2001, 2002, 2003. Kobe, one of the best players in the NBA already, easily. Freaking did not understand why he had to be nice to his teammates. Then it got worse in 2005, 6, 7 when his teammates sucked. And, like, he was like, why do I need to bring this dude along? Like, he needs to be with it or not. And there's some truth to that. Like, this is the Michael Jordan, like, you push everyone, and if they're not with it, get them out of your team, get them off, like, whatever. But there's this other part where Jokic's challenge in part is to get Michael Porter up to snuff. And he said, like, after the season, Jokic was asked, like, we can win a championship if we play together. Well, guess what? Part of getting everyone to play together is the team's best player demanding it in a way that figures it out. The way, like, his challenge now, it's his least favorite challenge you could possibly present him. He would rather learn how to shoot left-handed three-pointers than he would have to, like, I have to teach Michael Porter the wisdom of, like, how to do this properly. But guess what? To win, he has to do it. So to me, it's a great one, Harrison. It's still on the list. But Eric, what do you think about that?
Well, so the difference between like a Kobe Bryant game and a Michael Jordan game is that what do we laughing at?
That point was all votes, but I got the credit for it.
Okay, cool.
No idea.
Cool. But the point is like Jokic's and Kobe's and Michael Jordan's game cannot really be compared because Jokic is much more of a complementary player. Like for him to get the most out of his game, he needs to have everybody sort of walking in lockstep and not from a fear standpoint. Like Kobe and Michael were just like, get the fuck out of the way. Like, I'm just going to do this. Like they would just go into straight ISO mode. Like they would, and Jokic is never going to do that. So it makes 1,000,000% more sense for Jokic to approach this in a way that is building his cohorts up as opposed to just like getting them scared and falling in line. So it's just like I agree. Like Jokic just it's funny too, because you're just talking about, the egos of NBA basketball players that you don't necessarily want to have to think about. Cause like, you guys, like you're competing at the highest level. You shouldn't need to be motivated. You shouldn't need to be, it shouldn't need to be explained to you how to play complementary basketball and winning basketball. But unfortunately, these are also like children oftentimes. Like Michael Porter Jr. is still like definitely in a place where he needs guidance in life. Like he definitely needs like a strong presence in this aspect of his life. And so does Jamal Murray was showing us the same thing too. Like just bad decisions, just childish ways about approaching work and like work ethic and all of this stuff. Jokic, it would be amazing for Jokic to sort of just step up, be that guy, be that beacon of not only professionalism, but also playing the game in the right way, like being mental about it. Like, I don't think you can impart that on guys necessarily. I don't know I know that you can like teach them to sort of see at least like what he is seeing, but Jokic, I think Jokic's IQ is much like Michael Jordan's skill level, where he doesn't understand why other people aren't as good as he is. So he like can't get people to play as well as he did, because it's fucking impossible.
This is exactly what Eric's saying.
I do like this comment though. We need a CP3 type of veteran to do that. You guys, what's funny about this is Chris Paul has obviously had that impact in Phoenix and it's worked out really well. I don't know if it's because he's grown as a leader or if it's because he has a group that's capable of handling it. You guys realize CP3 has exhausted his stay everywhere he's gone. I mean, the Clippers, like he wore on them because he is so demanding and he can be so like just annoying as a leader that over time like has a bump, and then over time people tune him out. Maybe it happens in Phoenix if they don't win this year. Guys are like, dude,
DeAndre,
what we're doing. Yeah, DeAndre Ayton maybe, but those guys have like handled it really well, and maybe it works. But so for Yoke, rather than say they need a CP3 type guy, of course, if you can get one, but there's not, CP3s don't grow on trees.
That's my thing with this argument always. It's like, okay, name me the other CP3 type of guy.
Well, I will say, like, CJ McCollum is not a skill that Denver needs.
Holiday.
They don't need CJ McCollum. But one thing that I know he brought to New
Holiday
Orleans, but one thing CJ brought to New Orleans was that leadership and the communication stuff. And like, so there are these types of players out there hidden in plain sight. But my point is, rather than go spend money on finding this guy, Yoke can grow into this. And just like CP3 has gotten better, Yoke can get better at this to just a level that will help him get through to Michael Porter, who's like the biggest wild card of the Nuggets 2023 season by a mile. All right, let's hit these last super chats here that came in before we get out of here. Philip says, thanks y'all for covering the Nuggets this season. Let's bring Melo back for next season.
I was so in on half of that super chat.
Here's what's funny, man, about that. Like, there's a sentimentality to me where I'm like, look, I want the Nuggets and Melo to be reunited emotionally. Like, I've said this all the time. Booing Melo does not mean we hate him forever. Like, it's not that I hate him. I just root against him until he's done. Like, when he's done, like, we'll embrace him back again. But he left Denver. He didn't want to be a part of Denver. I don't want to be a part of him until it's over. And then we can get back together and hug it out and retire his jersey or whatever it is we end up doing. Bringing him back, he has no usefulness on the Denver Nuggets roster. None whatsoever. So if he
really
came back, he has. Come on, man. He can't guard a chair. He's a volume chucker. Like
Jeff Green, dude.
Yeah, I don't think Denver has a use for him on their roster. I think it could, and he's also at a point in his career where he's still playing real minutes. If he wants to come back on the Jared Dudley role his final year, where it's like, hey, you're making a vet minimum, you're not going to play. Understand, you are not going to play for this team. Then I would take it. But if you come back with a like, hey, man, I just got 8-9 shots a game for the Lakers. Like, I can still do it. Look at what I'm shooting. It's like, no, I'm sorry. Denver does not need that.
I don't think they need it. All I'm saying is he would have been their best scorer off the bench this year. Clearly.
All right.
Am I wrong?
Keeping it real about mortgage. I love the name. $1. He's keeping it so real about
holy smokes.
It's about time too, because a lot of people are ready to keep it about mortgages, but they're not ready to keep it real.
They're not keeping it real about mortgages like this guy is. Keeping it real about mortgage came back. We got another one. He says, yay, super chat works for me now. Hell yeah. Been trying to send you guys some cheddar all year. Thanks for all that you do.
Dude.
Hey, keeping it real about Morgan,
Dude.
you're a guy.
Keeping it real about love. Keeping it real about respect. Keeping it real about the Nuggets, dude.
Dylan Smith, great name, says, I hope we can get Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart on our team this year. 2 times MVP Jokic feels so good. Look, Marcus Smart is like the best of the mold that Denver needs. So I don't know that it's realistic to expect them to get him. But, maybe they could find a Marcus Smart. I mean, I think that's your best hope.
Jaden Springer. They could draft a Jaden Springer.
Oh my god! I love that all we can do is like as a fan base just hope to get postseason awards as our like.
Oh yeah, I would get Coach of the Year, and then we could get Man of the Year.
We're like, do you want to win a championship or okay, whatever?
Jose says, any chance Rivers becomes the starting shooting guard 3 and D? Yes, I don't think it's going to happen, but yes, honestly, like what's funny is Denver has enough talent that they don't need a hyper talented guy. They need a very focused guy. Austin Rivers, that could be that guy. So could he be? Yes. I don't anticipate he will, but look, man, he could be.
Could be.
You don't see it, Wind?
The starter? Probably not. I mean, I just think, look, I've been thinking about this a lot when just thinking about the Nuggets' need for perimeter defense. Like, a team like the Nuggets, I just don't think they can be relying on Austin Rivers as their top perimeter defensive option. Like,
if you do this, let me tell you this lineup. So if you have Murray, Rivers, Porter, Gordon, Jokic, where are you at offensively? If they were 6th this year, what is that team next year? Where do they rank?
First.
And where do they rank defensively?
I mean, probably worse than this year. Maybe worse than this
year.
I don't think so.
With Murray and Rivers?
I don't think people are talking about how bad Jamal Murray and Michael Porter are going to be defensively for most of next season. Like, that's a concern for sure.
I think Porter brings some stuff defensively, again, by virtue of just who he is that help out.
I think Murray's going to come in fantastic shape.
Well, he disagrees with you. He seems to think it's going to take some time for him to ramp up. I think
we got some time, baby.
Then your backups, if you have Monte and Bones, maybe it's Davon Reed at the 3, Zeke Naji at the 4, DeMarcus Cousins at the 5. That's a pretty good 10-man rotation to me. And you could close with Bones if you want to, or you can close with Monte if you want to. You could close with Davon if you wanted to. Like, you have some flexibility there positionally, so it's not the worst. I do think, look, I hope that Denver could get a Josh Hart level player. Like, I still would be all in on that, but something short of that. Austin Rivers is good, man. So, all right.
Rivers is good.
Can you believe it? First day of the offseason, we went 22 minutes long.
Well, we're talking about Jokic.
What are we doing?
We were talking about Jokic. We were talking about
Jokic. True.
We're talking about the top human, man. I could have gone.
I have one final area where Jokic really improved this season. His clothing.
Oh man!
Like, what can Jokic do for an encore drip wise next season? Like, that is a hot storyline heading into the summer.
He can have his own like signature line of menswear, like suits and things that are cut just specific to his specifics.
Like
get that Jokic logo on everything.
He needs to trademark the suit that's like for comfort. You know, like, he needs to come up with a suit
the drawstring suit.
Yeah, like he needs to own that.
I think, what if this is the slow evolution to Jokic wearing like Russell Westbrook outfits? Like, this was the gap year that we're like, how cool, but then next year it's just crazy stuff, and we're like, wow.
So what you're saying is you're afraid that Jokic is going to get kicked in the head in the offseason by one of his horses.
Hey, in all seriousness though, Eric, you make this point. It's a little tongue in cheek, but you're also serious about how like his like grooming habits match sometimes his like emotional state. I do wonder.
Not a joke.
Well, I wonder if there is a sort of maturation to Jokic. Like, he wears the suit because he means business. He did talk about different man was a joke, but it's also him saying like, "Hey, man, I'm growing up a bit." Maybe that's
super real. I mean, look, we every media availability, right, for most of his career, and we talked about that a lot this year. He is less and less the Joker, right? The goofball, the sort of maybe Dwight Howard kind of just like, oh, I'm just here for the ride, having jokes, having fun. He's less of that guy every day. I feel personally like I am asking questions of a more serious business first individual who is reflective on his responsibilities as the most important member of an organization. And here is a take that I hate for myself, and I can't believe I'm going to say it. Perfect way to close the show. What about being a father too? I mean, is there going to be an increased sense of just responsibility, next stage of life? What's the man I want to be? Who is the man I want to be?
Well, of course, I like it.
Of course. Yeah, quickly. That's not a joke at all. Like when there's like, you know what it's like when you're like not feeling great. You're like letting your hair grow out. Like your beard gets crummy. And then you're like, bro, I gotta step in, get a haircut. Like you feel like you're shedding depression and like you're, striding forward confidently. You dress for the job that you want. You dress, and like he wants to be like the top dog. There's something about like commanding respect through presentation, which is silly, but it's 1,000,000% the case. And he already earns that on the court. And there's something about when he just like shows up and it's like, he's impeccable. Like his hair, there's nothing you can point at and be like, man, this guy looks ridiculous, or.
That does it for today, guys. We got to get out of here. Hour and a half on Jokic. You loved every second of it. I loved every second of it.
Part 2 tomorrow.
Part 2 of Nikola Jokic. No, I think, who do we have on the docket for tomorrow? Do you guys remember?
Monte.
It looks like Monte Morris. Can't wait to get into Mr. Nugget tomorrow. Hit that like button on the way out, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.